Welcome everybody to our fifth video of Soma Yoga. My name's Andy and this is Gabby, who's helping me, assisting me here. And today we're going to continue with some more standing poses. So we're going to be looking at Pārśvottanāsana, intense side stretch pose, also sometimes called pyramid pose. And then we're going to look at a variation, Parivr Trikonāsana, twisted triangle pose. So we'll begin with the first one, Pārśvottanāsana. So Gabby, if you'd like to take the foot position, that's it. And you'll notice Gabby's feet are a comfortable distance apart, not too long. If it's too short, you don't have space to bend forward, which you'll be about to do in a moment. And the back foot again needs to be turned in around 60 degrees so that the back hip can square and she can have the hips square to the front of the mat. Yeah. In this position here, again, the front foot is fully grounded down, so we're using the fibularis muscles to press down and ground the foot, and both the quadricep muscles are working to straighten, extend the knees. In the back leg, the gluteus muscle, that big muscle in your butt, that's working hard to pull the leg back into extension on the rear leg. So now we're going to turn to the hands and bring the hands into a reverse namaskar, reverse prayer. Now this is a more challenging position and we'll be showing modifications, easier positions in the modification section of this video. But in this position with the hands in prayer, you basically are rotating the shoulders inwards. So with the shoulders being rotated inwards, that's stretching the smaller muscles in the back here, the infraspinatus and teres minor muscles. Those are two of your rotator cuff muscles. And you have to get those shoulders forward in order to be able to get the hands into prayer. Similarly, in the wrists here, that to get the hands to be able to press together in prayer, we need to be able to have good, very good wrist flexion so that we can bring the heels of the hands together. So in this position here now, Gabby's going to start to lean forward, and I'm going to come around her here. As she leans forward, she's using the psoas muscle to fold forward, assisted by her abdominal muscles. So that's what's helping her to fold down. And counteracting that is the gluteus muscle on the rear leg. So that's acting as a counter to the psoas muscle, pulling the torso forward. And she sinks down as far as she's comfortable to go. That's it, bring the chest towards the leg. The tibialis anterior that runs along the front of the back leg here, that muscle as well is working hard because of the dorsiflexion of the back foot, and we're keeping that back foot really firmly grounded. So in this position here, you can come back up a little bit, Gabby. Some people are going to find, and you can release the arms, some people are going to find that that reverse prayer position is just not attainable for them. So you could just grab your opposite elbows, for example, and do exactly the same pose, just holding your opposite elbows. So if you have less mobility in your wrists, this is certainly a good option. Alternatively, coming back up, you could interlace your fingers and just turn the palms to face out. So turn the palms out, palms facing out. That's it. And then coming down again. So again, that's a slightly easier version than the first one we did. And coming back up one more time. If none of those positions are particularly comfortable, you have tight shoulders and it's very hard for you to bring the hands behind the back, then you can bring your hands straight down to the floor, keeping length in the spine. So we're working the muscles that run along the back so we don't overflex into the spine, working the multifidus muscle that runs along the spine to keep the lower back from curving and rounding. If you're finding it difficult to reach the floor, then you can always take a block, place the block underneath the front leg, and that's going to make it a little easier. So we still keep that length. Even if that's too much, you could put your hands on a chair, for example, and raise the body up higher so that you keep that nice length that Gabby's showing on the pose here. For some people, it's going to be very difficult for them to keep this front leg completely straight. So if you have tight hamstrings and attaining that anterior tilt of the pelvis is just not possible for you with your legs straight, you can put a little bend in the front knee, and then coming down again makes it a little bit easier. It's taking some of the strain out the hamstrings, and it's enabling that hip here to anterior tilt as opposed to posterior tilting, and we get a rounded back, which we don't want. And those are some of the variations we have. Come back up. Thank you very much. Let's now take a look at the second pose that I mentioned for this video, Parivr Trikonāsana, revolved or twisted triangle pose. So Gabby, if you'd like to take the leg position. And you'll notice that to start with, the leg position is exactly the same as the leg position that we had in the previous pose, Pārśvottanāsana. So comfortable distance apart, back foot turned in 60 degrees, both legs straight. And then this time, the only difference is we're going to have a rotation in the torso. So Gabby is going to raise her right arm to the sky, and as she comes down, she's going to extend and try and stay very long, bringing that right hand down, 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 all the way to the outside of her foot. So with the hand on the floor, we're able to use the rear deltoid, the back of the shoulder here, in order to open the chest more, to pull the chest open more. So you have that leverage of a closed kinetic chain with the hand on the floor. And the rotation is coming mainly from the thoracic spine, the middle part of Gabby's back. And there's some very small muscles there. They're actually called rotatores thoracicus. But you don't have to remember that. Some very small muscles that work in the upper part of the thoracic spine is what's creating this rotational effect here. Again, for some people it's going to be hard to keep this arm vertical pointing towards the ceiling, so they could place their hand on the hip and just work to keep the top shoulder open. So we're also making sure that in the lower back, the muscles here, specifically the multifidus muscles, are contracting in order to keep length in the spine, because when we do this rotation, the external obliques on the top side are being stretched and the internal obliques on the underside are being stretched. So they're going to tend to encourage a rounding of the back. So these muscles here, the multifidus muscles that run along the spine, they're going to help to keep the spine nice and long. Now, for many of you, if you'd like to come back up again, Gabby. For many of you, you're going to find that it's very hard to get the hand all the way down to the floor, in which case, if that's the case, you can use a prop. So we can take a block and have a block on the outside of the front arm, extending down and reaching the block. And again, you can have the block lower, higher, depending on your flexibility. So if your hamstrings are tighter, it's going to be helpful to have that block, because it's going to be challenging for you to come all the way down to the floor. If this top arm being up in the air is too difficult for you, you can just bring it down onto your hip and just work on opening up that top shoulder, so you're getting as much rotation as you can. And come back up again if you would. Thank you. Now, there's one other problem that you'll often see in this pose, and that is as people come down into the pose, the front hip starts to push out. So if you come back down into the pose, Gabby, if you would, and then allow your front hip to push out. So a lot of people, they stick this hip out to the left-hand side, the left hip goes out to the left. So we've got to try and square the hips and bring that hip in. So we're squaring the hips as much as we can. So we've got to engage in the front leg the gluteus medius anterior fibers and the TFL muscle. So we've got to engage those in order to stop that hip pushing out to the side. Lovely, if you'd like to come back up. So that was Parivrita Trikonāsana, revolved or twisted triangle pose. And look forward to seeing you all in our next video on standing poses in Soma Yoga.